Good morning to you and welcome to the channel. This is Phil back with the Professional Painter and Decorator, back with another wallpapering video. These wallpaper videos, it's a bit Marmite, a bit chalk and cheese, whether they do well on the channel or not. Some people are interested in wallpapering and some people aren't. So I'm trying to do these videos that if you are interested in wallpapering or if you are interested in getting into wallpapering, hopefully I've got enough videos on the channel to virtually cover every base. Now today you've seen probably the thumbnail and the title and you're thinking, what's Phil doing today? Phil today is doing a chimney breast, and I thought it to be very prudent of me to actually run through some of the processes that you need to do when you do a chimney breast. I see a lot of TikTok stuff, reels on Instagram, stuff on Facebook, stuff on the internet where people are doing wallpapering, and I'm not saying it winds me up, but it does irritate me a little bit when somebody's hung paper that looks really expensive, but they've actually not thought it through and they've not got the positioning right, whether it be on a chimney breast, whether it be on a feature wall, or just generally doing a whole room with wallpaper. So today's video, yes, I'm going to be telling you how to tackle, how to look at, how to actually approach doing wallpapering on a chimney breast. It's not as complicated as it needs to be, but it's not quite, well, I'm going to say it's not quite just banging it on and hoping for the best. So give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to get my kit out and I'm just going to talk you through it. I'm not going to say this is an hour video. It might be 20 minutes, it might be 30 minutes, but you will learn everything you need to know on this video. You won't need to be doing day courses, 2-day courses, week courses on how to do wallpapering after you've watched this video on how to do a chimney breast, because we will cover everything that you need to know. So catch you in a couple of seconds and let's get started. Right, so I've got my bits out. My main thing is I've got a bucket of, at the moment this is hot water, but by the time I come to use it, it'll have gone to a temperature that I can put my hand in. Right, let's quickly talk about the paper. We've got a Harlequin paper. I have put plenty of Harlequin on before, so I know what they like. This is a paste the wall. I'm always going to say to you, read the instructions. Make sure you know what the instructions are telling you. A lot of papers do advise to use lining paper. This chimney breast that I did I'm actually telling a lie, my father did it about 10, 11 years ago. This was a problematic wall. The walls in this room house, lath and plaster. The chimney breast wasn't brilliant. We wall rocked it back in the day. I think it was called Armadillo, and it had a paper over it. The paper was really good. It was tight. We didn't want to strip it, so we've gone over it with, and you might have seen on some other videos, I've mentioned it quite recently, it's the Zinza cover-up wallpaper paint. Now, it's an oil-based product. It goes over wallpaper. It stops any problems you might have for painting or wallpapering over a previously papered surface. It's all piece of paper. Right, so we've gone over with that a few days ago. I've just nibbed it down to make sure there's nothing over the surface untoward for actually papering over again. I'm not needing to line it because in effect that is a totally and utterly stable lined surface. Right, the paper, we'll get onto it. It is a non-woven, it is paste the wall, and it is, if you look at the instructions, it is a half drop. Now the half drop, this dimensions, we've got a I'm looking at it the other way around. We've got a 76.2 centimetre half drop. So that means you've got 76.2 distance between your paper, pattern, repeat, but the half drop is halfway between that, and the pattern will actually be on a staggered slant slope. It's not going to repeat all the way through. I'll explain it when we get some paper on the wall so we can actually make it a bit easier for you to understand. I'm going to say to you, that is straightforward enough. I've got down here, I'm using the Albany from Brewers paste. It's wall covering adhesive. It's, I would say, I'll put my neck on the line, 99% of your wallpapering jobs that you will do, or 98, 99, this will be a suitable product to use. Just be mindful when you read your instructions whether some wallpapers do do say a specific paste. They might say, don't use a cellulose paste, don't use a wheat-based paste, use a specific paste. If in doubt, check. Speak to the manufacturers of the wallpaper, and also Google it if you're not really understanding the difference between the different pastes: flake paste, tub paste, cellulose-based paste, wheat-based paste, and things like that, because you don't want to get the wrong paste. If you've got the wrong paste on the wrong wallpaper, you might find that there are mold spores or a reaction happens with the paper and the surface you're going on, and it leaves marks actually on your finished paper. That's why you've got to make sure you get your wallpaper paste correct. Right, let's crack on. Right, we've got a chimney breast. I've got a laser liner at the back of me. I will get that just turned on so you can just see where I've turned the light off. We'll see it a bit better. Yeah, we're all right. You can see I've got a laser liner. It's not lined up at the moment, but what I'm going to explain to you is where to start. Now, there's a couple of ways. There's actually three, there might be four ways. Let's call the fourth way to start on the chimney breast. If you hang from the top and come down and you actually hang your wallpaper horizontally. We're not talking about that today. We're actually hanging it vertically. But there are a couple of ways of doing this that this is what I'm seeing on the internet. A lot of people don't seem to understand positioning of wallpapers. Right, we'll get there in the end. Sorry, we're in for the long haul, aren't we? This paper says that it's 520, 52 centimetres, 520 millimetres wide. I've actually measured this up, got a ruler. I've actually measured it up and it comes in 525. So there is a bit of a tolerance issue on the actual paper. Always just check. There might be a few millimetres difference. This is a 525. Right. Let me just move my laser across. There. If I got some wallpaper, I would be looking at a room, going all the way around. We're looking like this all the way around. I would be looking at where to start, particularly when you've got a chimney breast. Now, a chimney breast is always a good place to start because this is the focal point of a room when you come in. So this is where today we are papering a chimney breast, but the same principles apply if you were doing a full room. Look at your wallpaper. Look at the pattern on the wallpaper. Look at it. Now, this is very much a random pattern. This is very all over the place, but it is a half drop. So there is a pattern repeat, but it won't be straight through. It'll be on a half drop slant. So always look at your paper and look at the area that you're going to be working on, because this is a chimney breast, which size-wise, I'll just drop the camera down. We've got the fireplace in the centre. Right, so I'm getting ready to hang. I'm talking you through it. If you get your line in the middle and you've balanced it across so you know that the centre is spot on, we've got an equal distance either side. A lot of people will hang the length of wallpaper to that middle line either side. Nothing wrong with that. Some papers are fine, particularly if you've got straight through pattern matches, that'll be fine. You've hung from the middle, it's nicely balanced. But this paper's a half drop offset. I don't want to do that. I actually want to hang the paper, find the middle of the paper and hang to the middle line there. So I've got half the paper there, half the paper there. If you're not understanding, please comment below. So I'm actually using the paper in the middle, and then my next subsequent pieces, lengths, will be either side of that. So if we just say, just for argument's sake, I've got a length in the middle, my next length is just there. Now, this is great because it is giving me, I don't know if you can just see there, it is giving me a little bit of an overlap to wrap around that corner. The same this side, it'll do exactly the same this side. It gives me a little bit of an overlap. Depending on your size of your wallpaper and also the size of your chimney breast will depend on where that position of the paper falls. Always check don't just go straight in and actually putting it straight on, because you might find that because of the width of the paper or the size of the chimney breast, it's going to make it very awkward. What you don't want to be doing is finding out that your length of paper comes up about an inch away from the corner. You don't want that, because it's going to make it very difficult for you to get around that corner. Likewise, you don't want to find that your length of wallpaper falls and it literally falls on the corner and you've got nothing to work with. Ideally, you want it like I'm going to be doing, with enough wrap round that you can actually get it round the corner. I don't always wrap round on externals, and the reason being, if you have a bad corner that's running out, and I've got a spirit level here, if you've got a bad corner that's running out, your paper will only go to where that corner actually is, and it can then throw that corner out with your wallpaper, meaning that when it wraps round that side, you're not going to have a plumb length. Now, being plumb is the key. I would sometimes, depending on the size of the return, or whether I'm on a full wall and I'm going around a corner on a main room, if there's enough paper, what I do is measure from the last length, and I'm going to say if the last length was there, let's call it there, I would measure the distance between that and the corner and add, particularly with a rounded, call it a bullnose corner, I would add a good ½ an inch, I would say at least, depending on how the corner goes. If it's quite a tight corner, you can narrow down your actual wrap round distance. I would measure from there to the corner and add a little bit more, get my pasteboard out and cut a strip of paper all the way down, knowing that I can allow it to go round that corner in one, make sure it gets round the corner nicely, and then the off-cut piece would be rehung just slightly onto that overlap and plumbing that length in. Hope that makes sense. I'm going to say to you, don't worry about if you've got to overlap wallpapers. You're only talking a fraction, and it stops that paper drying out and pulling off itself. It keeps in place. So that's where a professional would do that. A lot of amateurs or people who aren't actually into papering seem to think that you'd go round in one every time you go to an external, get it round, but you'll find that not every corner is actually true, and it throws you out. You've got to get it plumb. If you're not plumb, every other length will be thrown out. A lot of amateurs seem to think as well that you'll go around the corner and if it's out, overlap it and splice it and get the pattern. Don't do that. If you knew how to do your wallpapering and you knew that that corner was out, without building the corner up and making it new, I know some people will do that, what you do is you just bring it round by a fraction, depending on how much you need, might be ½ an inch, allow it to go round and then rehang that off-cut piece against it on top of it. So you find the pattern, and if this is your paper, you just put it on slightly. I've got a video in that corner explaining better for externals. That is the video you want to watch if you want to know about external corners. But on this paper today, I'm going to be hanging from the middle, either side, and one of the questions that you're probably asking, Phil, why didn't you go like that? And I'm going to tell you, because the next length, I'll show it on here on better, the next length there falls to the side of that fireplace with a fraction to work with. I don't want to be working on awkward little pieces down the side of that fireplace. I want to work with fuller amounts. Right, the next thing I'm going to mention is always look at your pattern on your paper. This is a very busy paper, very busy pattern. You're not going to really notice it. Some of the papers that have hung over the last couple of years have been with a pattern on it. You know the dragonfly paper I did there? There's a dragonfly paper feature wall papering. I couldn't hang to the middle of the feature wall with the paper. I had to find the pattern on the paper, find that plumb line of the pattern, and then offset, not hanging it to the edge, offset it with hanging a plumb laser line to the actual pattern. That then gave me a full balance of the whole wall that when I got to either side of the wall where I finished, I was cutting and it had got a balanced picture pattern, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't showing more pattern on one side than the other because I'd actually found the middle of the paper as well as middle of the wall. That said, right, that's that video. We're on with this one. What I'm going to do, paste the wall, I'm going to actually paste and get on this length here. This will be, we're going to call this length A. Now, because that length is A, and I'll mark it, the ones either side will in effect be my lengths B. Both of these, that will be a B, and that will be a B. Or call it a 1, and that's a 2, and that's a 2. Whatever you want to call it, just be mindful that your middle one will be different to the ones either side because it is a half drop. It'll be more apparent when we actually get it on. So I'm going to get that on. I'm going to get it all on off camera. We'll have a look at it and then we'll look at the next lengths, how they're going to fall for you. Another thing I'm going to say, this is just a cheapo fireplace. Don't want to say that with the customer in the room. They're not here, they've gone. I've managed to unscrew it so I can actually pull it away slightly. Just a quarter of an inch. I will be able to tuck the paper at the back of that fireplace because it is a floating freestanding fireplace just with a little couple of screws in it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull it away, tuck my paper at the back, but I'm going to get that first one on now. So I'll catch you in 5-10 minutes. Right, so you're understanding me fully and we're not missing anything out. I've now moved that laser across to where the edge of the wallpaper needs to be hung to for a plumb line, laser line. Now we're in the middle before, that was the middle of the chimney breast, but because I am hanging this halfway between, I needed to measure from that middle line halfway, i.e. half of that distance. Now because we're a 5 to 5, that measures up at 2, 6, 2.5. So as good as 2, 6, 2.5 millimeters, we have got a mark and a line. So I will be actually hanging my paper to that line there, which means this side will be exactly the same, giving me a balance between there and that corner, there and that corner. So just be mindful when you've got your middle line, you've got to then get a line to hang to. Now I've got the laser there, I'm going to get a pencil, I'm just going to mark it along that line, 3 or 4 spots. And I know that's where I need to hang my paper to. Get it down, then we can look at the next lengths. See you in a bit. All right, that went on dead easy. I don't know whether you just saw, my back was probably against the camera. When I cut that bottom edge there, I cut it with the shears. I allowed a fraction of an over, like quarter of an inch, and then just pulled that fire surround away and tucked it down behind. Now, there might be some questions, why do I use a squeegee? This is a non-woven paper. I'm not expecting it to need to be moved anywhere. It's not going to expand, it's not going to need bumping across, as we call it in the trade. That's what you'd use a hanging brush for, because you can actually get it in place and move it and force that paper. That's more on the traditional paste the paper papers, where that comes into its own if you need to move it across, need to get it to match up with another joint. But with these non-wovens, just get it down, get the air bubbles out, and it shouldn't move, it should be in place, it shouldn't be needing to be moved across. Just do what you can with it. But it's always a good idea to have a hanging brush with you and all the tools. Do it as you mean to go on properly. Right, This is a very much a random pattern, as I said earlier. I'm not looking particularly to get any patterns, making a pattern on the paper as you come in. This will be as it is. I'm going to say I'm actually a bit low on paper, so I can't be spending too much time trying to get pattern matches, you know what I mean, trying to balance it. It's going on as it is. Now that first one's gone on. My next length, I'll work off the second roll. And if I can show you, this will fall, as I was explaining earlier, this will fall with about a 2-inch wrap round on that corner. Once I know what that wrap round's like, will determine and depend on what I'm going to do for the pieces into the actual return around the chimney breast. But this, you'll see, I'm going to pull it off. Half drop. Let's look at that. Can you see that darker cerise pink? I would expect the next one of that, i.e. there, to be halfway between. On the halfway, if you can see it, is there and there. It'll be about there. Can you see? Yeah. It will be about there. I can just see the pattern match. So I know where I've got to go. And the same length, pattern position will be the same on that side as well. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this one on and then that's the next one. Then we'll have a look at it. All right, I've got that second length down, which we're calling the B length. Now I've gone round, oh, let me move my steps. Gone round the fireplace fine. Do you know what? Dead easy if you can just cut a little bit beyond the fireplace and then pull the fireplace back and tuck it in. It's an easy day for me. It's an easy day, mother. Right, what I want to show you on this one is we've got, this is the excess from the corner. Can you see that? I'm flapping it, I'm moving it round. Let's bring you in closer. This is the excess from the corner, look. This is what I'm calling the wrap round. Now, I'm going to show you how to get this round because what I'm planning on doing is going round and then butting up to that edge there. Because it's an inch, I don't want to overlap onto that, i.e. let me just get, I don't want to get a next piece of paper, go around that corner and then, if you can understand, put a piece over it like that. That's what I'd do if I got a fuller piece on the return. I can't do that, there's not enough. So let's get you back in. Cameraman's all over the place. What I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how you do it, how you get it round. Now, my friend over in Florida, Spencer, you've probably seen some of his videos, he's got a funny way of doing things, particularly compared to me. He works with a lot of vinyls and things. He'd probably get a heat gun and stretch that to that corner to get it round. Now, I don't need to do that with this paper. What I'm going to do, I've got a warm sponge. I'm going to start from this middle section here, not starting at the top, not starting at the bottom. I'm going to get that round at the middle, eye level. And I'm going to work my way up and I'm going to feel it with my fingers. There's enough paste on there, because of wrap round paste, there's enough paste on there for me to actually manipulate that corner and work it up and down. But I'm working up and down from the middle section, not from the top. The reason being is, if you started from the top, by the time you get halfway down, you'll have slightly stretched it, moved it, and probably found a crease. Whereas if you start from the middle and work your way up, work your way down, work your way up, work your way down, you'll be able to work in smaller sections and get that around in one without getting a crease. Also, the warmth of the sponge will help it manipulate the paper to where you want it to go. Now, I'm just feeling a bit of a crease coming there, which I'll come back to and try and sort, but I'm trying to work it around, which I have done there. That's gone on nice. I'll get my steps up there, do the top, and then I'll come down with a squeegee and make sure that that edge is down. We're all right at the top. It's not bad at all, actually. I know full well if this was a posh paper on a customer's job, it's going to run out. So always allow you always have a backup plan that you might have to cut that, return and rehang. With something as narrow and as small as this, you'll probably try and manipulate the next piece that comes into it. But on this, I can work it fine. I'm coming down, just my squeegee just to push any paste. I'm just using the squeegee to push any paste to the edge. So I know I've got enough paste on that corner. It's going nicely. Just where my little creases are, I've managed to just squeeze those out. Just wipe that off while I'm up here. And while I'm up here, I'm just going to trim off the excess up at the top. Now I'm going to tell you, that is a lot sharper edge than trying to cut with one of these. So I've seen on videos where people are cutting and trimming wallpaper with one of these, and then when they show you the edges that they cut up at the top, they're not actually sharp, they're slightly rounded onto either skirting or coving, because the thickness of that is giving you a ridge. The thickness of that is giving you a tight cut. So always have something like this, a proper straight edge that you can actually get it up to the top, cut and cut straight, neat into what you're cutting against. Right, let me crack on with this bit and we will come back when I show you how to do the next piece into the corner. But we're nearly there, don't worry. It's not an hour, is it? We haven't been an hour. Just while I've got you here, that's gone down nicely, I'm happy with that. Can you just see that laser? I kept the laser going to make sure that the pattern at the top didn't waver as I was going around that fireplace, because with it being a shorter, narrower strip, there's a tendency it could move one way or the other and then throw your joints out, throw your lines out, throw your seams out. So if you've got a laser, you can just keep it on a specific spot of the paper at the top, and it also matches down at the bottom, and that's what I've done. So I know that is actually true as the pattern is as we're looking at it. Right, we've not been very long, we've got all the face on now. Now I just want to show you what these corners are like, because on the tripod, I can always show it up. Can you see how that is overlapping? Can you see? Now, there's not enough there for really me to trim off to be rehanging. So what I'm going to do on this side, it's only a small piece, I've not got far to go. I'm actually going to try and hang the next length up to that. I don't think this will be true. I'll have a little bit of work to do on that to get it across. If I have a problem, I might just have to move it over slightly and overlap it. I'll see. Don't get frightened of the word overlap. I've got to work it to see what's going to work best for me. But let me just show you the other side. Right, this is where I'm actually back, and I knew this was running out. Look at that. This is what I would call the distance, the size, the measurement I'd want as an overlap if I was doing an overlap and then a rehang. But look at this. It's about, what is it, 1/4 of an inch there. It goes all the way down, all the way down. Look at it, it's getting wider and wider and wider and wider, just like the other side. Now what am I going to do? Again, we've not got a big distance, so I'm actually going to try and hang to that. I know it's not going to be vertically plumb for the whole pattern, but for where this positioning is of the paper, I don't think anybody's going to notice. If I was on a bigger job, i.e. there'd be more of a length of paper to go and I was following on with lengths of paper, I would trim this, I would keep it at that, and as it starts going wider, I would trim that excess off. This is what I would do on another sort of job, depending. I'm going to say depending, it just depends how it all works out for the room. But I would trim that off and I would come with my next length and I would slightly, and I'll go and get a piece of paper and show you. Got my piece of paper. Let's look up here. If I was hanging this paper with an overlap like that, this piece, which would then be plumbed up, would just go over there slightly. Not all the way to the edge, just pull it back from the edge just enough so it traps on. Look, can you see? It traps on, and that's how you do it all the way down. Nobody'd know. You match your pattern best you can as well, but that's how you do it. But in this instance, I want to see if I can just butt joint up to that. Let's see if we can, just there. If I can butt joint like that all the way up and down, I'll be happy. But I don't think it'll probably be as easy as I'm thinking. But if you have a problem with paper, it's normally on these corners because they're not square and true. So always consider that you might be hanging on top on an overlap like that. And nobody will see that. Nobody would see that. That's how you do it. Okay, it's not been too long, probably 10 minutes since I've last spoke to you. Now, explaining going around a corner in one and then butting up to it, I'm a professional. I know the problems we're going to have. I didn't think this would actually go on that well. Now, what I did, I put plenty of paste on because it's paste the wall. Put plenty of paste on the wall because I knew I needed this to be pliable and soft. It's on. But what I did, I buttered up against that edge, you know, because it wrapped round. We were only a fraction there and it was wider there. But do you know what? Butting up, I was off and on. It was like a ground's back leg. And this is the problems you have when you try and go round in one. It was off and on. Now, the places that were butt were fine, but the places that were off and it was pushing this section of paper, it was pushing it and caravan it. I'm going to peel it back. I'm going to pull it back because it's still workable. Where we were actually butt, we were fine. But where it wasn't, and it was actually pushing against this piece of paper, it was pushing it. And can you see what's happening? It's putting a pressure on there. It's putting a caravan. Call it a caravan. It's an air bubble. I didn't want that, so I pulled it all the way off like I've done there. Got this back on and literally let this hang how it wanted to go on this paper for the butt joint. So, people are going to shout at me, but I'm telling you how I'm doing it. So there's areas here where I'm butt joint, but then a fraction of a smidgen, this paper might be slightly overlapping onto that little strip. The reason being is I did not want that little strip that was on that edge pushing and caravanning on that corner, and it's not. So yes, there may be areas, you can feel a bit there, where I've got a slight overlap on the paper, but then we go to areas that are butt, and that's how you've got to work it to know what you're doing with this sorts of paper on these corners. As I said earlier, coming down, just pressing them down. If this was a bigger piece or more lengths of paper were going on after this, I would have cut that to the distance that we'd got there, which was about 1/4 of an inch, and re-hung on top of that. And that would have negated, that would have done away with the problems I've had. That's why it's taken me 10 minutes to hang this length, because I've been working these corners. I'm happy with that. We've got the pattern match. We've not got a caravan on that corner. That's nice and tight. But unfortunately, the compromise has been I've got a slight little overlap. And when I mean slight, I mean I've not been able to butt it up against the other length. Now, when this is dried off, I will go back round with the seam roller and try and press it in. I'll try and, can you just see there? A little bit proud. That's all it is. But then I'm back on, I'm back on, I'm back on, I'm back on, I'm back on. I'm feeling it, it's back on, it's off, it's back on. That's because this corner is so far out, even though it looked good on a spirit level. But that said, we're looking good. So we're done. This side there, you know, we'd got a little bit more of a wrap round. And what I've had to do, very similar to the other side, it was running out. It's the ground's back leg, as we call it in the trade. I could not butt joint up against that wrap round, and that is why I keep going on about when you've got externals, the more you do them, the more you'll realise you probably just want to overlap round, cut it and then rehang. This I couldn't do because I'd not got enough paper width. I'd let it go round by that inch, but hanging a new piece up against that edge and it's all wavy, I struggled. So what I've had to do, same as the other side, butt joint it where I could, pull the paper back, just let it go as it wants to fall onto that little bit of an edge. So I have got areas where I can feel the edge of the paper that I've hung just slightly proud because it is just sitting fraction, like fraction, not but, fraction on top of that edge. But the majority is actually butt jointed. Now with this being a busy paper, you're not going to notice it. Other papers might be more noticeable. Please look at your paper and evaluate what you need to do. But saying all that, this has got on fine. Harlequin, really nice paper to hang. Paste the wall. I know somebody's probably asked earlier, might have asked, going over that, cover up primer, which is an oil base, there was no need to actually size the wall because with that being an oil-based surface, it wasn't a porous surface. The paste going onto it for paste the wall went on a dream. It's not got sucked in. The porosity was even. So a good porosity surface going over that oil. So we're all good on that. It's hung lovely. I've cut it neatly into the tops and down the side. I've got a plug socket down at the bottom for the electric fire that I've loosened off and tucked paper at the back. And on the whole, a very impressive paper. Let's have a look at it square on. Right, so we're square on. I don't think anybody would tell me this isn't a busy paper. It's not a paper you're going to come into the room and go, oh, I'm noticing that pink, I'm noticing that pink. It's not jumping out at you like that. Some papers have got colours in them or a patterning that are really noticeable that when you stand back, you look at it and go, I wish they'd have balanced that. I wish they'd have done something with the paper and moved it around so it looked more balanced on the chimney breast. This isn't that sort of paper. This is very random. You're not noticing anything that's sticking out and jumping out at you, but it is a half drop. So you can see the lines of pattern going through. Can you see it there? Or going up that way? That's where you have to look at your paper, evaluate where it needs to be positioned. We were talking earlier, if you've got a straight through pattern match, make sure it's going to balance side to side. This isn't going to balance side to side because it's on a half drop. But saying that, looks fantastic. The colour combo in this room is a little bit eclectic, but if I tell you, colours have been picked out in the soft furnishings. We've got the pinks that match spot on with that. We've got the ceiling colour, which is done in a Wimborne, I believe it might be James White. Is it Farrenball 20? I believe Farrenball 210. I believe, is it James White? I'm not sure, but it's number 210. The ceiling's an off-white. The walls are colour matched to pick out the colours in that cushion there. So everything blends together. It matches with the suite, it matches with the cushions, it matches with another chair that's got pink in it. So this eclectic colour that you go, ooh, doing my eyes in, it's not. It actually all blends and actually goes together well. And on that note, I'm going to say thanks for listening to me. I'm sorry this has been a long one, but I can't tell you how to do this sort of papering in a 5-minute video. There's too much information to actually put across to explain the problems you could have or the way to do it. If you're wanting that sort of video, please keep with TikTok and Instagram where they're just 1-minute shorts, where somebody gets a roll of paper, touches the wall and it's done. Nobody's telling you how to do it. Nobody's telling you the problems you could come up against. I'm telling you the problems you can come up against, and it was running out on these corners. Be mindful of it, but I've told you how to do it now. So please watch the videos at the end. It really helps if you do watch those videos because it supports the channel with the algorithms and anything like that, and it might put me one step closer to getting a Porsche. I doubt. See you on the next one.